Hello, everyone. My name is Patrick Nurkin, Marketing Executive at Walkerscott. Welcome to Walkerscott's webinar presentation on Microsoft Dynamics 365 Business Central. Today's speakers are Director Blair Scott, who is taking the place of Wayne Clark, and Farhan Ali, our Senior Applications Consultant. If you have any questions during the presentation, feel free to add them in the Q&A space on Teams, and we will address them at the end of the presentation. Now, Blair, I will leave it with you.
Yeah, thanks, Patrick. Appreciate it. Good afternoon, good morning, wherever you may be. Firstly, thanks for joining. Obviously, this was going to be a physical seminar based in Melbourne, and due to recent events, we've moved that to a webinar. So we welcome all those of you who are now able to join as a result, and to our Melbourne attendees. Thanks for the understanding. I'm sure you can collaborate with us and the reasons behind why we had to do this. So look, today's we originally was booked out for an hour and a half. We are hoping to sort of wrap up within the hour for you, just being the nature of a online webinar. So what I'm going to do is, my role today is just to introduce you a little bit to Walkerscott and introduce you to Business Central and what that means as a solution. And then I'm going to hand over to my colleague Farhan, who will jump into the product. And we've basically just got some scenarios that we want to take you through and introduce you to the solution and what it's capable of, so that with the outcome being really is that you have a better understanding and you can engage with us if you'd like to talk further or look a bit deeper into the Business Central solution. So who is Walkerscott? So our purpose is making business better. So we're action orientated and we're passionate around helping our clients leverage Microsoft technology. So we're a gold partner with Microsoft. We are Microsoft only, and we're fundamentally a cloud first consultancy, which is probably not surprising into today's environment. We have quite a diverse team. We've covered well all over the world, both physically. We have offices in 4 countries, and we have members from all over the place in our teams. Bit of the splash screen just of some of the clients that we work with. We have a range of clients from project services through to consumer goods, through to software services, etc. So really diverse range of clients. We don't have one industry that we specifically specialize in, although we like everyone, we have our preferences. So who's behind Walkerscott? There's 3 directors, myself, head of people and partnerships. Paul Knox is our Chief Executive Officer, and John O'Walker is our Chief Technical Director. So the 3 of us founded Walkerscott some 11 or so years ago, and with a strong background, all 3 of us, in ERP, being business applications. So all bring experience of running businesses as well as selling and implementing solutions like Dynamics Business Central. One of the key things that we like to get across to clients and in our relationships with the people we work with is what we believe and bringing our mindset into the relationship. And so these are 3 key points. Technology must enable your business strategy. So we strongly believe in the concept, and today's buzzwords, I guess it's around digital transformation, but fundamentally that transformation has to be aligned and supporting and enabling the business strategy. Technology must be infused into the fabric of an organization. It's not a department, so we don't talk about IT anymore. My children don't think of the world in technology, not technology. Technology is infused into our lives in every possible way, and that's how we need to think of it at an organizational level. It's just part of what we do, woven into our everyday. And the third belief is really around being data driven. So, and that has to come from the leaders of organizations. So without that top down support, the ownership of the data and demanding that data drives the decision making is absolutely critical for the organisations of today. And that one is quite often, we have a data and analytics practice, and quite often that's people see that as a point around the need to have better, data collection systems, data storage systems, and an analytics function. But really, in the sense of business applications, the sole reason of why we have a business application, which is a series of forms where we enter information into, is to capture data. That's what they've always been there for. At a compliance or a finance level, they're there to capture our invoicing information so we can be compliant around tax, so we keep general ledger, so we can track performance and position, and therefore report through to the ATO or the IRD. The reality is that is what their purpose has been, and then all the way down into the operational side, it's about being productive. So we capture data as organisations, and what we're seeing there is that the way we use that data has always been really important, but in today's environment, we have to architect our business applications around what we want to do with the data. And so that's a really strong message, and a point of differentiation, we believe, for Walkerscott and how we come to delivering business application projects. So then our values, really critical part for us is that these are what we define as values that drive our ways of working, so how we work with people, and there's just 5. We try and instill these into everything we do, like most organisations try. It's really around simplifying the complex. We work in that hard space between tech and business leaders, and so our goal is to always be simplifying what is fundamentally complex projects or situations or scenarios. Be relevant. In today's environment, everything's moving so rapidly. How do we make sure that we have a position of expertise and authority to work with you and support your organisation? Lead the way. We have to be thought leaders on this stuff. We have to position ourselves and operate in a way that is constantly adding value. 4th one is support our people. We're a services-based business. Our people are all we have, and so we have to live and breathe and ensure that the people that we're putting out there in front of our clients to deliver value, deliver outcome, love what they do and are passionate about what they do, because then that is how we add the value and build credibility as a consultancy. The last one is create positive change, and so this goes a little wider and into our ethos of who we are and wanting to make sure that the work we're doing is having positive impact, and whether that be through our people, our customers' people, or the community as a whole. How do we instigate and be seen as making positive change? Roll that back a little bit, and then you kind of go, well, actually, we've got to make sure we're delivering positive change within our clients as well. Couple of things, as I stated earlier, we're a Microsoft Gold partner. We've built our business on Microsoft technology, so we are daily users of Microsoft solutions. So we live and breathe this stuff just the same as you do in that context. We are innovators, so across the Microsoft solutions, we're trying to we're staying up to date on all the new stuff, all the exciting stuff around the likes of the Power Platform. We're at conferences. We're looking at ways we can leverage that and build solutions for our customers. And finally, we are technical expertise, so we are constantly completing competencies and technology, the technological assessments that we need for our people to remain there, and that's across Microsoft Dynamics 365, the analytics, so the data and analytics piece, and also Microsoft Azure being the cloud platform. So then switching gear a little bit and moving away from who is Walkerscott and talking about the environment we're operating in. So change is happening. It's happening fast. The cloud is fast becoming the preferred. And funnily enough, we're still, like we always have been, we're all about productivity improvement being our focus. How do we just do things better? And the big shift that we're seeing in the technology space is that the tools are now accessible and available to businesses to leverage and drive, automate. Okay, so these are just some stats. I mean, there's hundreds of these statistics that are produced and are available, but these are just 3 that resonate with us around, the thinking in our marketplace that we're operating in, and why we partnered with Microsoft, why we believe you should select Microsoft products, and the things that will be or occupying either your headspace or your manager's executives board above you. So with that leads into this story. So some of you may see this. We live and breathe this, but Microsoft talk about 4 pillars of digital transformation, and in this diagram, those pillars are engage customers, empower employees, transform products and services, and optimize operations. And really, in order to do those 4 things, in order to make that happen within your business, you need data, and you need data about your customer so that you can personalize your message and engage with them better so that they buy more product. You need to understand how your products are performing in the market, who's buying them, what they're buying them with, because the products we sell today might not be the products we sell tomorrow. Okay, optimization of operations. This is productivity. This is delivering all those improvements in the way we do our business. How do we lower the cost per transaction? How do we reduce the amount of time it takes to do stuff? Okay, and the final one is empowerment of employees. So how do we get happy customers? We have good employees. In our organization, that is absolutely the case. If my employees aren't happy, you as a customer will sense that and know that. So this whole thing is intertwined. And in the Microsoft world, the way they enable or provide the tool sets for us as their partners to deliver those solutions are around 3 clouds. And those 3 clouds are Microsoft Azure. Now, Azure is the infrastructure. That is the compute, the storage, and the ability to operate. So that's like we used to have server rooms and servers and teams that run it. Microsoft Azure is that infrastructure for us to leverage. We then have the Microsoft Dynamics Cloud. Now, Dynamics is all things business applications. I'm going to talk a lot more about that, so we'll just park that thought. That is what today's all about. And then the final cloud is the Microsoft 365. So this is Office 365. So a number of you, if not all of you, will be leveraging Office 365 within that. Maybe Power BI, maybe the extended raft of products that exist within Microsoft 365. The key message here is that it is the combination of those 3 clouds that really enable and deliver a really unparalleled opportunity on the Microsoft platform in today's environment more than ever. It really is that Microsoft's finally kind of got all their pieces aligned, and we're seeing a whole integrated solution delivered across these. Okay. Behind those clouds, it kind of looks like this, and this is we call this the cluster diagram because it's a subset that was put together to illustrate the number of different products and bits and pieces that actually exist behind that lovely marketing slide from Microsoft. So if we start at the bottom here, the Azure services, we're talking 54 regions, 140 countries, 100 data centers, fiber. There's 600 odd services that we can tap into and leverage as part of building solutions. Okay. Now, then if we flip to the top, we've got Dynamics 365 being the forms, being the products that we physically interact with. If I'm in customer service, I'm processing a case inside customer service. If I'm a sales guy, I'm tracking an opportunity through the sales system, and so on through the range of products. Right to the end here, which is where our Business Central product sits, being the all-in-one ERP application. Now, beneath that and supporting those Dynamics products is the full Office 365 suite. So we're seeing a level of integration that we've never seen before between our productivity tools, Outlook, Teams, Excel, Word, and integrating and using them in our transactional workflows within our Business Central. We're seeing things like LinkedIn's tool suite integrated into the family of products around empowerment and employees and tracking, managing that talent pool as such. Then we've got the Power Platform. So this is the bit that's really interesting. I'm going to talk a little bit more about this today, but this is the extension and the adaptation of your Business Central product to do more for your specific use cases. Okay. And finally, it all sits on something called the Common Data Service. So in the cloud, we have a think of it as a data service where all of your information sits and can flow seamlessly across the applications, across the Office products, and across the Power Platform. And that's really a major change from where we've been historically, where we've had disparate databases for different products and you've had to integrate them, etc. With it all sitting in this common data service, all of a sudden there's a whole lot of new opportunities to do things fast and effectively. Now, with that common data service, let's say you've got things that don't exist or live outside the Microsoft family of products, and we all know in reality that's absolutely the case. That common data service has 231 data connectors and growing rapidly in terms of other products it can integrate with. Maybe you use a Dynamics product Business Central for your core financials, but you use Salesforce for your CRM. Maybe you've got a consumer-focused business and your Facebook sentiment analysis is really important. So you want to integrate with your customers. You want their Facebook sentiment analysis tied in. All of that can be done within your common data service. Right, a little bit about where we specialise and our position to talk to you today is around picking out the bits. For us is this bit down here of Business Central. Now, in our world, we separate the two a little bit, but in effect, they all live within one family. So we're talking to you today about Business Central. We then have the Power Apps, which is the ability to build apps without necessarily developer requirement to do specific functions for particular roles inside your organization. So this is where you used to have to go in and customize your Business Central and make changes, and you needed your developer or your vendor, the partner, and that got hard and complex because it's ERP. Power Apps is now the place to do that. It is a far more low code, faster way for power users within the business to implement solutions to specific scenarios. Okay, so that's really the key messaging there. Around that, we wrap a whole lot of other services that Walkerscott has specialty in, but that's the key piece that we're going to talk to you today about. So, jumping into Business Central and talking specifically to that. Now, look, I'm covering a lot of information. I realise this. Please just fire in questions into the Q&A section, and we will answer them for you as best we can, or we'll come back to you with answers where necessary. So, Business Central is a solution. It is a mid-market ERP application in the traditional sense. It has financial management, it has project management, operations. So this is, I'll come back to that, reporting analytics, supply chain, and sales and service management. So sales management, light CRM, service management for works orders and doing service-based work. Okay, so that's the core feature set. Around that, it has a whole lot of data and intelligence. Farhan's going to talk to a little bit about some of that today, about the integration of the likes of Power BI natively into Business Central. And then it's really around, it's a modern application in terms of how it integrates, how it works, what's available. It's unified, so it's flexible, it's scalable, it's across the Microsoft cloud, so it's very secure. And then you've got a big ecosystem of partners. So Walkerscott's just one. It's not like when you go with a product like Business Central, you've got your partner and that's the only person that can support it. We know, and it's such an important thing and often overlooked, is not only are you picking your product when you choose what business application you want to run, but you're choosing your partner. And those relationships can come and go over time. So knowing there's a significant community behind the product is absolutely critical in selecting a product. It's intelligent, so obviously in terms of how quickly we can onboard through it and the intelligent processes that Business Central is starting to introduce, and don't underestimate that AI piece in the Microsoft landscape. And finally, it is adaptable, so it's full nav functionality. I'll talk a little bit more about nav in a minute, and it's got a very strong roadmap with Microsoft. Right, now underneath Business Central, as I talked about, are three very powerful products. Power BI being the analytics tool for measuring and reporting. Flow, which is actually, you build flows in a product called Power Automate, and that is delivering the ability to do integration and automation of workflows. and finally then Power Apps, as I talked about, being the tool that you can, the form tool that you can build apps to deliver specific scenarios. So this Power Platform, as Microsoft have named it, is hugely beneficial when you're looking at Business Central as your business application, because this enables you to really extend it and extract enormous value from it without having to get a separate set of products or tools. So with all that being said, you can then customize and extend the Business Central product in the traditional sense. So the product comes with a whole lot of out-of-the-box functionality, forms, dashboards, all the usual stuff that you get. Then if you need to do a little bit more than that, you've got the Power Platform to customize. You've got role-based apps, as I talked about, or you can build. You can either go looking for custom solutions that are already built by other partners, or we're able to extend that and customize that ourselves as well. So really customizable is the key message there. Right, so I'm just going to hold on this slide just for a sec, and just want to talk to this is the core, I guess, functionality that the product offers. Now I understand behind each one of these grey boxes is a whole lot more and a whole lot more detail, but this is the key feature set of Dynamics 365 Business Central. For a little bit about evolution, key message here is that Business Central is not a new product. It's been around for 20 odd years. It has historically been known as Dynamics NAV. When Microsoft moved, they had a couple of dabbles at moving to the cloud, as did most vendors, and really Dynamics 365 Business Central is the evolution of the naming of the cloud instance of Dynamics NAV, and then late 2018, the two products merged. They became Dynamics 365 Business Central, and it is parity between the solutions. Okay, so it's not new. It is the Dynamics NAV functionality. If you know Dynamics NAV, that is. So there's three options with Business Central in terms of deployment. So you can go cloud. So this is as it sounds. It's a subscription-based offering. You pay a monthly fee per user, and that's all you have to do. Cloud Sync is a hybrid approach where you retain your core business systems on-premise and you have a copy of it in the cloud. The reason why you would do this is that you get all the benefit of the cloud services, the intelligence, and some of the algorithms and artificial intelligence inside the application. It also makes it easy to migrate, switch over to the cloud at a later date. And then the third option is you can still run Business Central as a on-premise application where you have your server or your private data center and operate as we may have done traditionally. So I think this is an important thing to note. You have the options and you're not being forced one way or the other. And even if you choose to stay on premise now, you have a pathway to the cloud at the right time for you. Why go cloud? It seems a funny question in today's environment when we've got the world's situation unfolding in front of us, but that ability to be accessed anywhere, anytime, I think is more so than ever. I'm not going to go into the detail here, but just obviously there's a whole raft of options. One of the key ones is that Microsoft will deliver more and more AI and automation services into the Business Central product. They will be cloud only because they leverage the Azure platform. Just because I think it's important to touch on, and transparency is the offering and pricing. So really high level look at the product. There is an essentials product and a premium product. There is just more there is some functionality that's only available in the premium product, and obviously the licensing here is if you were on premise. Note this is all USD pricing, just for simplicity. I present USD pricing. Essentials over here, if we go cloud, is 70 US and premium's 100. That translates to about 95 and 105 Aussie New Zealand. Although I think based on the currency today, it's probably parity. and then you can get team members. This is probably the most important piece. Team member is a limited access license for specific role-based scenarios, and we've just done a transition of a client from another ANZ-based product, mid-market ERP product, and they reduced their license and a monthly license by about 70% due to the ability to leverage a large portion of their user base at this at the $15 New Zealand price point, using a team member as such. So where you've got disparate, sort of quite specific roles who have a set base of functionality that they need to access, the team member makes it very, very attractive. The only other point to note is for those customers that are on Dynamics Nav today, there is a promo to drive you to using the cloud, which is about a 40% discount. It has a limited time on it, and so if that's of interest to you or you're interested in looking at that, we're more than happy to talk you through what that means and what that timeline looks like. Finally, just from me, I made this message earlier, but this is a mature product with a really substantial customer base with a large partner community, and knowing, having that partner community. And a really good example of this is, a partner has just released user-based training videos for free to the community, and there's 500 videos. So that availability of content to help you as an organization, to help us as partners, is just so readily shared. It's a very, very powerful part of being part of Dynamics 365. So with that, I'm going to hand over to Farhan, who's going to take us through a demo. I will no doubt not stay completely quiet because I've always liked jumping in and disrupting him. But Farhan's going to walk you through and introduce you to the Business Central solution. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Blair, for the introduction. I'll just switch over to my screen. Hi guys, thank you so much for your time again. My name is Ali. I work as a applications consultant at Walkerscott, and today my my objective is to take you through the application. Right. So referring back to the presentation, this is an on-cloud installation for Business Central. So I'll actually start off at Office or office.com. So if we were to go into office.com, you'll see that you get a single sign-on interface, or basically a single sign-on page. As an implementation consultant or as an application consultant, I've seen in the past going forward that there are 3 areas where Microsoft is working really hard. One is single sign-on. Second is Power Platform, which I like to call it as a Lego of custom applications. It has, obviously, as you've heard, 3 components: Power Apps, Power BI, and Power Automate or Flow. These are out of the box built into Business Central. And you also get access to integrated Microsoft Office apps, and you'll see some of those integrations in this demo today. So when I go into office.com, you'll see that there are a few apps that I'm using. I've got Dynamics 365. If I click that, it shows me another landing page, which has a huge range of Dynamics applications, including Business Central. I can click Business Central and it loads up the Business Central page. You might have noticed that all of that is through single sign-on based on my login into Windows. Yeah. Now I don't really need to go through all of that. I can simply click the link here, and it will take me to the Business Central application. So that's the power of single sign-on. Now, when we land into the system, the landing page itself is something that we call it as a role center. A role center is a bunch of responsibilities or functions that a particular person in his role or her role does. Currently, I'm sitting in the accountant role center. The application comes up with a lot of pre-configured roles. My user obviously currently have all these roles pre-configured and added to my user, so I can show you in the demo. I'll come to the screen again. So a role center is kind of like a landing page. If we scroll down further, you will see that there are a few components here. Now, all of these are personalizable. So for example, if I were to go in and click personalize, I can actually move things around. So let's say if I click that, move it here, it should move. And similarly, I can actually go in and hide complete sections. For example, this one, I don't really like it, so I can hide that. And if I want it back, I can just go clear personalization. So now these changes are actually at the user level. So if someone else has a similar role in there, so for example, if there are two accountants and they are sharing the same role, these changes don't affect both. It's just specific to my user. Yep. Now, coming down further, there is so the role center is specific to different users. So if I were to move into, say, a manufacturing role, I'll start seeing production order or other functions related to production, shop floor. There is this function called search. Now, this is a very comprehensive search function. It's a multi-tiered search. And what it does is it actually does a multi-level search. So the first level is it searches on the current page and gives me options relating to item, which is my search string on the current page. The next one goes in and searches all pages and tasks within the system. The third is reports, so anything related to item matching the search string. And there are if there's more than 3, obviously you get this show all function. And then down the line, you get access to documentation and Microsoft App Store or App Source, where you can get advanced functionalities or custom functionalities that might fit your unique business requirements. Now, what I wanted to refer to is this documentation panel. So you might have seen in the past, or you might be using some other systems which tend to, restrict user access when it comes to material or training resources. But Microsoft, the good bit with Microsoft products, and especially Business Central, is that it doesn't really hide anything. These are all publicly available resources. Anyone can just Google this, for example, how to reserve items, and they'll see a Microsoft document discussing, in fact, telling you exact steps of how to do it. Okay, so that's the search function, and I can easily access any function from here, and it will take me to that functionality. Now, you will see me using this a lot in this demo, because that's how people use the system. The next bit on my list is the explore all function. So in order to show you the depth of coverage, a role center can be, a bit restrictive, because it shows you functions specific to that role. But we can actually go into this functionality, which we call explore all, and we can show you the footprint this application covers. So if I go into explore all, you'll see that there are quite a few different modules that can be covered using Business Central. We've got purchasing, so purchase quotes, orders, finance, cash management, human resources, a bit about people, manufacturing, machine centers, work centers, production bombs, projects, jobs, warehousing, advanced warehousing, picking, put away worksheets, sales and marketing, service, resources, and so forth. Now, you do have to be a bit mindful here that there are two versions, or I would say 2 levels of subscription in Business Central. One is the Essentials and one is the Premium, as also mentioned by Blair. The difference here is slightly in terms of functionality. So Premium includes manufacturing and service, while Essential does not include these 2 modules, but the difference in pricing isn't significant. Yep. Okay, going back to my role center. So the next bit is my settings. So if I were to go into this small cog at the top and go into my settings, it pops up a small window. I had opened that earlier. So this allows me to change certain things regarding my user. So the first one is the role. So if I have multiple roles assigned to me, because I'm, for example, a small company and I do multiple things at work, these roles would show up here. And I can switch between these. I will do that later on as part of my demo. Then if I have multiple companies set up, for example, my company works in 2 countries, Australia and New Zealand, these 2 would come up here and I can switch between companies. This is the work date. So technically, if I were to create certain transactions, say go forward or go back a few days to enter some things that I may have missed, I can just change the default date, and then based on that, I can trigger transactions. Language, region, I won't go into much detail, but yeah, you can change time zone. So if you have people working remotely from different countries, for example, New Zealand, Australia, or within Australia, they can have their own regions, and they can, and the reports come out based on these. excuse me. Okay, so as a finance person, and the role being focused towards accountant, I would actually want to start off with chart of accounts. So if I were to click the chart of accounts functionality, it shows me a basic chart of accounts. You see that on the left there are account numbers, on the right it's a traditional chart of accounts. However, if you look closely, you will note that in a traditional ERP system, there used to be segments in a chart of accounts. There used to be, say, a cost center where you would have multiple cost centers or some other segments which you might use for reporting. Now, Business Central, what it's done is that it uses dimensions instead of segments. So what we can do is we can actually go in and apply dimensions to individual or multiple accounts. Now, the dimension concept isn't very new to people who have worked in business intelligence or BI reporting, but basically dimensions allow us to set up separate segments per account. So you're not really restricted to applying, say, a cost center to all your chart of accounts because you don't really track cost center, for example, for certain asset accounts. And similarly, you can have different reporting elements for different accounts. For example, if you have, say, an account where you're tracking fuel, you can actually have a dimension set for, say, trucks, and then you can have dimension values defined for trucks. And whenever someone is trying to enter a journal or an invoice or something against that account, the system will enforce based on whatever setting we've set up here to enter or select a truck number. And that then also falls into your reporting. Okay.
Yeah, I'll just jump in there, Farhan. This is a really powerful part of the solution to do divisional or segmented profit and loss or balance sheet reporting. So it's you build your organizational structure around dimensions.
Yep. Similarly, if I were to jump into one of the accounts, let's say repair and maintenance, it opens up a huge page, and what you'll see is obviously some of the basic settings. You have the 5 basic accounting types. If you scroll down further, there are certain posting rules which allow you to automate posting from different sub-ledgers to GL, as well as certain GST rules which allow you to localize your build for Australia, New Zealand, tax rates, and so forth. Similarly, there are reporting around exchange rates, which I will also touch on further down the line as I go. In here, one thing important could be, let's say, if I wanted to see if there are any entries posted to this particular account, I can actually go into account ledger entries, and well, there's nothing there. I can pull up an account which actually has certain things. So let's say, there it is. It had balances, so I'll just pull up that one. So this one. And I can just go into ledger entries, and I can see that there are certain postings done in this account. And this basically allows you to see the history around this account, whatever's been posted. And we can actually go and navigate and drill back if we wanted to, or reverse transactions and so forth. Now, this is one side where we are seeing a single account and seeing the history behind it. The other bit could be, say, if I wanted to see the history in terms of journals that have been created, I can actually go into something called a GL register. And here what it shows me is it's a pretty powerful tool. It shows me all of the entries that have been created so far. It's got history from all subledgers and GLs. So let's say if I were to pull up this particular entry, it's and there are certain buttons here. So if I click GL or general ledger, it shows me the debits and credits. Now that's expected of any accountant, right? But if I were to kick in a customer ledger, it will actually take me and show me the invoice that has created this entry. And I can actually pull up the whole document right from sitting on the screen. So this powerful integration comes out of the box built in into the system. And this is common for basically all types of entries. So you'll get purchasing, you'll get cash payments or collections and so forth. And you can drill back from sitting right here and look at all different types of ledger entries, which are effectively subledgers for you. So vendor ledger or employee ledger, and you can even do reversals if you need, so forth. Now, the next item on my list was showing you something around cash flows. As you all know, given the unfortunate times we kind of live in. So normally finance and reporting are twofold, as I understand it. One is a historical based reporting where we kind of look at historical entries and whatever has been posted, and we look at how we've performed in the past. And then we try and predict something for the future. Yeah. So the system tries and covers these areas as much as possible, and to be honest, does quite a bit in these areas. So one of the screens that I wanted to show as part of the Accountant Role Center is this particular widget. It allows us to set up certain reports. Now these are for historical reporting. So, and some of these come out of the box and are fully configurable. So we've got some cash cycle, cash flow, and income and expenses reports, and these change based on how we've performed in certain periods. And these are actually configured in account schedules. So I will just go in here, and you will be able to see certain account schedules. If I were to go in, say, income and expenses, process, and say edit account schedule, you'll be able to see the different lines that were on that report, plus any totaling or accounts and so forth. So these can be configured based on your specific or unique needs. And this can actually allow you, and mind you, this is not the only reporting. There are other reports as well, but these are some of the reports currently available.
So I'll just jump in there. The name account schedule is not that traditional to people who aren't familiar with Dynamics Nav. So the account schedule is really the traditional finance report writer that most people will be, let's say most financial people would be familiar with in other ERP products. So it's where you define the organizational reporting structure that you have and how you want your P&L and your balance sheets, etc. To be produced. Okay.
Yep. Okay. So the next bit is the cash flow, and this is actually a new development. So this front end is actually kind of new in Business Central, and it leverages the strengths that came in as part of earlier releases. So if you look closely to this particular screen or this particular small widget, what it shows you is that in March, so there are a few different funding sources available. Now I'll show you where these are defined and how these are working. So at the end, you'll see that there is a total of 1.4 mil that's positive for me in March. In April, I'm kind of reduced to 756, and in May it's giving me a negative 925 grand. So basically it's telling me that in May I'll need some funding during May, and then in June it's going back to positive. Now, how did it come up with that particular information? So if I were to go into cash flows and I go into, well, this is the only one that's currently defined, go into cash flows and availability by period, you will note that there are certain entries which have come up based on certain funding sources. So I've got receivables, sales orders, service orders, manual, I'll come to that, payables, purchase orders, and so forth. Now, in a normal business, you would have certain funding sources, some certain common funding sources which give you certain cash, and then you end up with certain cash outflows from your business. Yep. So in this particular screen, what's happening is for the periods of March, April, May, June, you have net activities. Some of those are negative, some of those are positive. So you can see that in April, you're going a bit negative, and then May is quite negative. That's because this particular report is showing up as net change. If I change it over to, say, balance as at date, it switches over and shows me that in April, I'll actually need some funding if I were to continue with my business and not end up in a liquidity crisis. Now, this kind of reporting can actually help you look towards the future and try and gauge whether I'll basically have enough money in the bank or in to continue operating. Similarly, now where did all of this information came in? So what happens is the system actually allows you to set up a bunch of cash flow accounts. Now these accounts aren't exactly affecting GL, but they're actually pulling information from your subledger. So some of the common funding sources are, say, receivables, payables. This is where you get money from your customer. This is where you pay. And obviously liquid funds is cash or cash equivalents. Now source types is actually the subledger module. So this is the receivables subledger, payable subledger. This is liquid funds, but then this is mapped to few GL accounts and so forth. Now, manual expense and revenues are manual entries that you could actually create to adjust your cash flows to reflect adjustments that accountants might create without actually affecting your GL. For example, if you have access to certain, let's say, lines of credit, you can actually go in and make adjustments here. So for example, I know that I can leverage a line of credit here in, say, May, where I can I can end up with, say 1 million. So I'll go May. And what will happen is I'll end up paying this line of credit. So what I'll do is I'll repay this line of credit in June. I only needed it temporarily. So what this allows me to do is it will basically smooth out my cash flow for that particular month. And as you can see here now, in May, I've got 76 positive, and then June is back to 861 because what I've done is I've actually put an adjustment of 1 million where I'm leveraging a line of credit, and then I'm basically paying it back next month because I no longer need it. So that's one example of how the system can help you be a bit forward-looking and try and use existing data which is already entered into the system and basically generate a view which you can use for planning in the future.
Just before you move into your next topic, Farhan, I just want to say everyone might notice there's a message at the top of the page, and I think it's pertinent to mention this.
Yep.
So there's a cash flow algorithm in the product that you as Farhan's demonstrated there, what you can do, but that algorithm is actually leveraging Microsoft Azure. So it's a really good example of where the power of the cloud's been used. And then if you had specific, if your business was quite different, we all need investment line of credits, debt, all sorts of different measures. If you needed to modify that algorithm, you've got all the power of the Azure Machine Learning Studio to actually go in and change the algorithm to fit your business. So really good out of the box functionality, as you just saw, with all the power of Microsoft Azure Machine Learning to customize that really specifically to your business.
Yep, good message, thank you. The next bit is, okay, so Power BI. I'm sure quite a lot of attendees here would already be using Power BI, but the important bit, as Blair had also mentioned in his presentation, is that Power BI and all other Power Platform components come integrated out of the box with Business Central, and one example is right here. So Power BI is actually built right into the Role Center dashboard, and we can actually select any reports based on our access levels in the system and reflect those on the Role Center. And these are actually live reports, and they get updated as your Power BI system will get updated.
Can I jump in again, Farhan?
Sorry, yeah, mate. Sure. No.
Just on that, people may be interested. So you dedicate a workspace to that list that popped up there as you leveraging the Business Central workspace. It does hold true to the permissions and licensing of those people, but you can display, obviously leveraging Power BI, you can now start to have reports and dashboards that in effect are using information from other systems and be bringing that information back into Business Central. So if my key place of work is inside Business Central, I'm not having to jump out to Power BI or another system to find that information. I'm able to centralize all of that here into my dashboard on my role center for me, and so that's something to be mindful of.
Yep. Okay, so next bit is multi-currency. So nowadays quite a lot of businesses are globalized, being connected and trade in different currencies, and consequently Business Central and its previous predecessors, NAV and all, already came out as multi-currency systems. However, Business Central went ahead one more step, and it allows you to pull certain information from the cloud automatically. So what I'll do is I'll pull up the currencies page, and you will note that quite a few currencies already come defined. We can obviously add more, but you'll note that some of those rates may already have been updated. For example, this one shows you yesterday's rate. The reason is that the system, because being on the cloud, allows us to define something called an exchange rate service. Now, not a lot of people know this, but in Australia, RBA publishes exchange rates publicly. Now, they may not be exactly same as your bank, but they are pretty close. And Business Central, being a cloud, so this being a cloud system, allows us to pull those rates out directly from the RBA's website. And if I click preview, this is actually a live feed from RBA, and it pulls up these rates, and then we can actually configure these to update automatically on a daily basis, and that's what's happening. It's running one day behind because of the scheduling, but every day it updates, and the scheduling can be fixed, but this is a test anyway. So yeah, now the concept for this is not just to show you the currency, but the functionality that this particular function is using is the data exchange definition. And using a bit of extensions, we can actually use this to pull different kinds of information from different systems, or push different kind of information to different systems. For example, the example that I had given you was RBA, which was the currency rate, but we actually use data exchange definitions to export out ABA files, for example, to the bank for payments, or ABA files to the bank for direct debits, or import bank statements using data exchange definition. So we've got a few statements already configured. If I time permitting, I'll show you one import, and so forth. Now, another valid scenario could be your partner vendor having published pricing for certain services, and you having a functionality defined here where you are pulling those pricing automatically into the system based on data exchange definitions. Yeah, so this can all be done based on a cloud-based implementation. Now, moving on to my next bit. So I think enough for finance. I'll move a bit towards the item master, or some of the master key elements of the system. So I'll cover three important master data elements, which is item, some bits about item planning. Then I'll cover off customer master and vendor master, and then we'll run a few basic workflows in the system. So I'll jump on, change my role to a business manager, which is another generic role, but it gives me access, easy access, I would say, because the other one also had access, easy access to a certain function, say master elements, for example. Yep, and I'll just make sure the dates are correct. I'll just fix that. Okay, so now number one, item. So I'll jump into the item master screen. Now, when we launch any particular screen in Business Central, the screens are actually classified generally in two types. One is a list, which is something like this, and then one is a card, which is something like this. So if we open up a record, a card shows up, but if we are in a list is a list basically shows up like that. Now, usually all lists have filters. So if I click this particular link, I can define separate filters. Now, these filters can be based on dates and so forth. For simplicity's sake, I've defined a few items which we will use and look at. Now, within the certain Now, I guess this is as good as any page to demonstrate one of the integrations between Business Central and Excel, for example. So any list which has page tab on it, you'll be able to see these two options, open and edit in Excel. If I were to click edit in Excel, it kind of drops down a file which is linked to Business Central. If I open up this file, what it does is it loads up a widget towards the right, which is the integration between Business Central and the system. And it takes a few seconds, and it loads up the data that's currently displayed on my screen. So I had a filter on. So what it's doing, it's pulling up the data from that particular filter onto the screen. Now, this is actually a linked sheet, and it allows me to make changes to the sheet itself. So for example, if I were to go in and say, change this to that and go publish, we'll say publish successful. I don't really need to save this because it's already there, and I can just jump back into the system, into the item list again, and search that, open that filter up, and I should have that particular item right here, and it's already renamed. So now, obviously, not everyone will have access to this particular screen or renaming the particular item altogether, but whoever has access, because that the Excel functionality will again follow the same licensing and restrictions based on the role for the person. So whoever has access to make changes will be able to make changes using Edit in Excel, and this works in almost all of the list-based screens. So if, for example, you are in a journal entry screen and you have a journal entry which is, say, 1,000 lines or 100 lines, and you can actually export, or if you are in a sales order line screen, you can actually export or import sales order lines based on that. So that's one option. Moving on into the particular item itself. So I'll pull up one of the items to give you an overview of the functionalities inside an item. Now, basic screen, you get item number. This can be automated or manual depending on your business process. You've got the base unit of measure, and then you can actually have secondary unit of measures as well with conversions. So in this case, it's kind of a wine. So there's industry conversion of 9 liters. So 9 into 1. So that's the conversion. Now scrolling down further, in fact, before I do that, we can also do attributes. So attributes are basically properties that a particular item might have, and you can actually use this to filter and change identify certain items. For example, in case of wine, you can actually have, say, body, say light-bodied, or say taste, sweet, and so forth. And an attribute can be text only, can be list of values like this one, or can be a numeric value like, say, percentage, and so forth. So all of these scenarios are covered. Similarly, there is something called variations. So what happens is you might have one item which has different variants. So let's take the same example as wine. You can actually have multiple years within a wine. So you can have a 2017, 18, 19, and 20. So you can have different variants, and then all of these can be tracked, because these are tracked at all transactional levels within the system. So when you are transacting, the system will actually ask you about the variant, and then you can actually have balances by variant as well. But effectively, it's all within the same item. So that's one functionality. Now coming on to the main page itself. So I've got the item, basic unit of measure. There is also a search code. Will be somewhere here. There it is, search description. There's the category, so we can have item categorizations. This is multi-layer, multiple levels. So we can have different levels depending on your business requirements. Now further down, item costing. So you've got FIFO, LIFO, I believe some of the accounting standards, like international accounting standards, no longer use it, but still available. The most common ones which we've seen is FIFO, average, standard if it's manufacturing, and sometimes specific if it's serialized, for example. Then we've got, again, general posting rules, which allow us to automate our accounting. If I were to open the screen, you will note that there are a few different types. And then if I click setup, you will note that under each type, there are certain GL account mappings defined for different scenarios. So it's a fairly flexible system. It allows you to have different types and then map out those types to different GL accounts. So it can automate and spread out postings to different accounts. Similarly, GST 10, which is currently localized to Australia, but if you're in New Zealand, say, you can go in and go 15%. Okay, I'll be quick. Replenishment, we can go into, say, purchase order. So we can replenish through purchase order or production order assembly. Similarly, in manufacturing, you've got make to stock, make to order. These all apply based on these rules. Plus, when you go into, say, a planning sheet, which I plan to show, time permitting. Similarly, in planning, you've got a fixed reorder, maximum, minimum, so forth. Now, the concept here on planning is items can be planned or unplanned. A planned item is something that you usually keep in stock and want to reorder, for example, if it reaches a certain quantity, minimum quantity. But an unplanned item is something that you don't keep in stock and only, say, for example, assemble or produce when someone orders it in. Yeah, so those all concepts are all there. Similarly, in production order, for example, you have production bombs, so you can actually define production bombs within the system. And if I were to open up this production bomb, so for bulk wine 1, if I go and edit, you'll see that it's got a few items, well, only 2 items in there, and it's a certified bomb. Similarly, we've got we can do complex BOMs as well, so bomb within a bomb. And similarly, we've got routing as well, which effectively identifies the route a product takes within your manufacturing cycle, like whether it goes to a work center or machine center and so forth. Okay, moving on. Next is customer. So customer master, fairly straightforward. We've got customer list again. If I go into any customer, say Walkerscott, basic customer details. We've got addresses. We can do different addresses based on multiple ship to, bill to sites. We can do multiple customer levels. So if, for example, this is defined as a customer site, we can go into basically, you can say that, say, Dan Murphy's has different locations, but we group bill at the group level, so we can define that. Similarly, the system supports direct debits, and then we can define direct debit mandates in here. Just go, there it is, direct debit mandates, and that allows us to generate direct debit lines for through the system. Similarly, we've got vendors. In the vendor side, we've got, say, for example, this one, same concept, just opposite of the customer, where we are simple paying, so we can have addresses and so forth. One thing to note, which is also there on the customer, is the fact box on the right, which allows us, which gives us kind of a snapshot of the transactions that have occurred in the past.
Yeah, I think that's it's just jumping in there again, Fun. I think that's a really valuable thing just to call out. So just on these lists, you'll see when Farhan's going into the card there, we've got the info box on the right hand side, which gives you a great piece of information relating to that vendor. But if you just come out of the card, Farhan, in the list, you can also have that info box displayed in the grids. Now, the beauty of this is that as you move through each of your vendors or your customers or your stock items, you're able to get all of that information. And in the case of these tiles, these blue tile blue boxes down the bottom, is that you can then quickly navigate to posted invoices or posted receipts, open quotes, blanket orders. So it's a really powerful way to navigate the system and see some key information about your vendors without actually having to go into them, each of them. So that combination of the list and the info box there is really supports sort of the navigation and usability of the system.
Yep. Okay. So the next bit on my list is what we'll do is we'll try and create, well, not try, we will create a sales order from Outlook itself. It's pretty exciting. So what I'll do is I'll put in my mailbox here.
Yeah, this is a really good example of where that integration between the Office suite. So what Farhan's going to demonstrate here is really compelling and something that flows right across Business Central and the rest of the Dynamics products as well.
Yep. So okay. So what I have is the web version of my Outlook open right now. Now, mind you, this is also available in the app version, but for the sake of this demo and for simplicity, I'm using the web version. So what I have is my email address is actually linked to a customer right now. So if I click that, towards the right, you get Business Central app. Now this is the add-in that you get as part of Business Central. It automatically pulls up the same fact box that Blair was explaining just a few minutes back. Now in the email, if you note that I've mentioned a few items and so forth. So what will happen is, so this particular add-in allows me to create certain documents from right here, as well as look at documents that may have been created in the past. So if I were to go into, say, orders, it actually pulls up the past orders that are currently open. But anyway, what I'll do is I'll go this and then say new sales order. So what it's now done is it's suggested me certain items based on the email body. So it's looked at the descriptions and tried to match these based on the descriptions in the item and picked out 2 particular item codes and said that whether we should use that particular item on the order or not, and then obviously the quantities as well. And the key point here is that this gets better with time. So as you go along and keep doing this, because this is kind of leverage of the AI functionality, so this improves. You go okay, and basically what happens is it triggers a sales order. I'll just click this particular small button, and this is Business Central right inside Outlook. And it pulls up the whole sales order. Now this is live, like it's currently linked to my application. So if I were to go in 101094, I'll just close this here. And I can actually go in here and just select sales orders. It's actually created a sales order on the system. And this order is fully loaded based on whatever we've entered from the system. It's got the pricing information as well as, well, my workdate would have reset back to May, so it's taken that, but that's fine. And the pricing information is obviously generated based on the pricing information that we have defined against these items. Now, mind you, in the system, we can define pricing for customers, or we can do a promo and so forth, but that's also another topic we can have a look. Now, similarly, one more place where we can do a sales order is an app. So for example, if you have salespeople who are currently in the field trying to sell, it's quite ironic with the current situation, but Business Central comes out of the box for certain mobile apps. Obviously, this is one of them. So what happens is, based on the user's role center, you can get access to functionalities. Now, again, same concept. You've got my settings, and then you've got, again, the roles that you've currently assigned. Now, this app actually allows you to do transactions, but it also has the same dashboard. So if I were to click that and switch over, it actually shows me the dashboards and the reports that we had. Similarly, we've got income and expense, select chart, and same concept. Now what I'll do is I'll actually create one order from right here. So I can actually go and say customer, And again, Walkerscott, that was the one that I was using. Now in here, what I can do is I can click that and create a sales order, sales quote, invoice. Now, mind you, this is running in my phone because, well, this is the version, but this is like the web version for that app, but this will be running in your phone. So while on the road, you can actually leverage the power of the cloud and this app and basically load a sales order on the system. Now, as soon as I trigger the sales order, if you look at the top, you'll see that the system automatically tells the salesperson that there is an overdue balance for a particular customer I'm standing in front of. So I can actually have that particular conversation. If I click detail, it gives me the exact amounts. There's quite a bit. Ignore the amounts, pretty big. But you can actually have the conversation of, say, yeah, particular amount is overdue. Would you be paying that and so forth? You can actually then go in and enter the order itself in the system using the app. So for example, this one, and quantity, say 2, back. So this order is actually entered into the system. I can go in and release, which is 101095. So I'll go in, release. Release basically means it's released to the warehouse. I can actually just close this. Don't really need that. So I can go back, go back. So this is my main page. Close, minimize. And in here, I actually have 101095, which is now entered from the app. So that's another way of entering a sales order. So Outlook and sales and app. Similarly, if I were to go in and create purchase orders. Now, within the system, there are a few functionalities. One is, say, planning worksheet. The other is requisition worksheet. The difference between the two is planning worksheets are a part of the premium version, while requisition worksheet is part of the essential version. Effectively, both do the same thing, except planning worksheet has a higher level of functionality. So what it does is it actually goes through the planning rules that I was talking about earlier in the inventory screen, and it generates certain lines based on my planning rules in the system. So usually it won't be empty like that. You would be doing a net change plan. So a net change is basically look at my existing plan and suggest changes, and then regenerative plan is completely do a new plan, delete whatever I had. So I'll do a net change plan. I'll use the same default. So MPS, master production schedule, and then MRP is material requirement planning. In these two cases, what's happening is the system will do these two particular runs and basically generate a list of actions that we can do, or the system suggests that we do, and then basically we can execute those. For example, in this case, it suggested me that I should create certain purchase orders because my stock is running low and I've already reached a reorder point for labels. So what I can do is I can select that. If I want to change the dates, I can do that. And similarly, it's telling me that I need to produce some wine because I'm running low on stock. So I can click that. And the reason for showing you that is this actually automates your planning and triggering process for creating certain actions within the system, like triggering purchase orders or creating production orders. Last bit on this screen is if I go into carry out action, the 4 things that this screen is capable of: production orders, assembly orders, purchase orders, and transfer orders. So transfer orders between one and other, between 2 warehouses. Yeah. So if I go OK, what it does is the 2 things that I have triggered, it will actually trigger those actions, leave the rest. I can leave this in the screen, go back and go into purchasing. And I have this particular purchase order created today. And it's got the label on it. And similarly, if I were to go in and find firm planned production order, it's got the production order functionality. Sorry, it's got the production order generated for 1,000 liters of this particular wine. Yep, and yep. So I suppose it's a sufficient demo to show a bit of an overview of what the system capabilities are.
Yeah. Look, I think it's been fantastic, Farhan.
Yeah,
Well done. We've got 15 minutes left, and we've got some questions, and maybe some more might come through as we chat. What we've done today is Farhan's taken us through some core financial stuff, some of the reporting capabilities, and both the traditional compliance backward looking as well as forward looking. You've seen some transactional flow. You've seen how you can instigate transactions from both Excel and Outlook. And we've centered that around the sort of the traditional item-based organization. Some things to note is there is a strong jobbing project component in there. There is a light CRM. There is a service management. We obviously, I was ambitious thinking we were going to be an hour, but there's not that amount that we can show. So what we will be doing, just one of the questions that we've received is specifically around whether we can do something around sales and marketing, and the answer to that is absolutely yes, we can. So what we're going to do is we're going to set up a series of webinars focused on specific areas of the product. So they'll be 1 hour long, and so we'll do something on jobbing projects, we'll do something on the sales and marketing, something on service management, and we'll run those over the coming weeks. So stay tuned for that. If you want something immediately, more than happy just to do a one-on-one with anyone who wants to see something specific, some specific functionality as well. So I hope that answers the question. The next question was, can you create a role that's not in the list? You want to answer that one, Farhan?
Yep. So yes, you can. It requires a bit of an extension, but it's doable. Yes, we can create roles which are not on the list.
Great. So you modify an existing role, and we can create a blank role from scratch.
Yes.
Wonderful.
Both are possible. Yeah.
Yeah, great. Okay, one of the earlier questions was around team member licensing. This is a great question. In terms of this person's clearly a Dynamics Nav user, so the team member license is different. So it's not how it was. There's pros and cons of both the old way and the new way. So a team member used to be able to pick a set number of let's say tables that you could access, which allowed you to access functions. In the environment today, there is a list of prescribed functions or areas of the product that a team member can use. That list is quite comprehensive. I won't go through the specifics of it, but for certain scenarios, it's not as flexible. You get access to more, but you don't get that complete ability to basically leverage the team member to minimize your licensing like you probably were in the past. Is the easiest way, and happy to go deeper on that conversation if that individual would needs to for their scenario. One of the other questions we had was, is this presentation recorded? Absolutely it is. And we can make that available. The second part of that question was around giving yourself a try. So Farhan, do you want to talk a little bit around how someone might go about having a play with the product?
So yeah, trials are available, but they would have to get in touch with us. Originally, there used to be a way to register for 30 days trial right at businesscentral.dynamics.com. I suppose that got changed recently, but if it doesn't work, we can always set up a trial for whoever needs it. So,
definitely. So yeah, that's right. So there are changes in this area going on, but we can certainly set up and get you access to an environment of a play. So Cronus is the default company. It is a furniture company, even though Farhan's hacked it a little bit for wine distribution, which is a personal favourite of my own. But yeah, that is something to be mindful of. Any other questions? Patrick, have you got any other questions?
Yes. Just give me 1 second.
Oh, hang on. Sorry, something's just popped in. While you're getting that, I've just seen something pop up here saying, do do customers require admin support for Business Central, i.e. new users, config changes, etc.? All is this business user controlled? Great question. So the answer to that is it actually depends on our customers. Some customers have that administrative function themselves, and absolutely. So everything, one of our philosophies is to empower the users. There's also a lot of good community information that we filter and provide to our customers as well, but we would absolutely looking for the ownership of the system is best when it resides with the customer. You get better adoption, better uptake and everything, and better use cases. And so that relationship where it starts with us doing lots, it's the dropping curve, whereby we're heavily involved for those first few months while everyone's getting across on it, and then it drops down to be more complex support. So that's really, that's the way we see that, and things like new users, config changes, minor config changes, definitely. It's usually, the question around config changes is usually understanding what the implications of making that change are. That's where we offer support to our customers.
Blair, there was just one more question. How many updates happen in Business Central SaaS?
Yeah, great question. So the process for updates, there's 2 major releases a year. They're called waves. They come in April and October. Are the 2 dates for those. Then there are minor updates happening fundamentally all the time, which are usually non-impacting in terms of core functionality, but we get 2 releases a year where major new functionality comes through. The upgrades happen seamlessly. We haven't had any experience of any problems around that functionality. And important to note for those who have done historical customizations or modifications to their business systems in the past is that in the SaaS world, because everybody's on a common code set, any development, any mods, changes, pieces that are done are all quite separate from the underlying code now. So it actually is truly a seamless process as such. So hopefully that answers that question.
There was just one more from Medina that just popped up. Thanks very much. It would be good to get the emails from the other webinars that you mentioned earlier.
Yeah, perfect. No, we'll definitely be in touch around that for sure. Okay. Firstly, Farhan, you did all the hard work. Hope people have got a good insight into the Business Central solution, the power of it, the integration, both with Azure Cloud and that cash flow forecasting example, the Outlook and Excel integration down in Microsoft 365.
I really hope that too.
Yeah, and if we'll be in touch with more information about some functionally specific webinars to help people go a bit deeper into areas that may be relevant to them. So if there's no more questions, we thank you very much for your time and look forward to hearing from you, hopefully.
Cool.
Thank you, everyone.
Goodbye.
Bye.